Welcome to Revolution Report, the show that highlights pressing issues, uplifts community voices, and questions the status quo. I'm Sarah Livings-Walsh.
And I'm Analisa, Venolia.
We felt the need to dive deeper into societal problems and explore subjects from diverse perspectives. So join us in the revolution. As promised on this episode of Revolution Report, we're going to be discussing the current attack on trans people's rights here in the United States.
People on the right have made a huge spectacle of trans people, creating an absolutely ridiculous culture war. And, embarrassingly, people on the left are engaging with and participating in that culture war.
Boo.
Boo is right.
Before we dive into everything, we wanted to make one thing very, very clear. We love and support trans people. We think transphobes are hateful, foolish people who need to get over their outdated gender essentialism. Also, they suck.
They really do. If you're transphobic, you are weird. Now, let's get into it.
We wanted to start this episode with some definitions so that everyone is on the same page. The term transgender means someone whose gender identity differs from the sex that they were assigned at birth.
And the word cisgender means someone whose gender identity aligns with the sex that they were assigned at birth. For example, Sarah and I are both cis women because we were both assigned female at birth on our birth certificates, and we both identify as women.
You are definitely correct. Assigned male at birth is pretty self-explanatory. It's a term to describe people whose sex was recorded as male on their birth certificate when they were born. It is commonly abbreviated as AMAB online.
And if you hear someone speak that term, it's commonly pronounced as AMAB. And assigned female at birth is also very self-explanatory. It's a term for people whose sex was recorded as female on their birth certificate when they were born, commonly abbreviated as AFAB online, and typically pronounced AFAB. And just to be clear, both of those terms, AMAB and AFAB, are very gender inclusive. They are trans inclusive. You can use the term AMAB to describe not only cis men, but also trans people who were assigned male at birth. It's just an inclusive term. We just wanted to make sure that you know what that means when you encounter that term.
Yes, we're always here to help. Now let's get into the meat of the episode. The right is obsessed with trans people.
They are.
At the current heart of the culture war on trans people is the ridiculous debate on trans women participating in women's sports.
Mm-hmm.
Feeding into the ongoing nonsense, on Wednesday, June 25th, Trump stated that California must ban trans girls from girls' sports.
What happened to states' rights?
Yeah.
Leave California alone.
I just find it very funny that now they want to, their whole talking point for the last, I don't know how many years, was to keep the government out of states' rights. So, hypocrisy at its finest, but I digress. But it's not just people on the right who are against trans women in women's sports. Gavin Newsom had Charlie Kirk on his podcast and sided with Kirk about trans women in women's sports, calling it deeply unfair for whatever reason.
That's really embarrassing for us Californians to have our governor not only host Charlie Kirk on his podcast, but also agree with him on something like trans rights. Just say you're transphobic.
Yeah, and also coming from a former nationally ranked softball player,
Mm-hmm.
I would never go into a game or a competition with that loser mentality. No, I'm so serious. When I am competing against people that are better, trans or not, most likely I wouldn't.
Yeah.
But if I were to, I wouldn't care because I'm going based off of skill.
Absolutely.
I don't go into games thinking that, oh, it's going to be so unfair if I lose because if they're better than me. No, I go in there thinking I'm going to learn something. If I play against someone better, I'm going to get better. I take every game as a learning experience. But that is what a true athlete is about.
And that is how it should be. Unfortunately, we have the example of Riley Gaines as a poor representation of a female athlete.
Correct.
Riley Gaines, for those who don't know, is an absolute grifter who became nationally known when she decided to make a career out of tying for 5th place. Let me explain.
That's so funny.
But that's what she did. A few years ago, Riley Gaines was a D1 athlete. She was a swimmer, and she was in a race with trans woman Leah Thomas. Now, neither of them podiumed. Neither of them got first, second, or third. They tied for 5th place in this swimming competition. 5th place. And because the competition did not prepare for people to tie for 5th place, because why would you?
Right.
They only had one 5th place trophy.
Valid.
Yes. And so the officials told Riley Gaines, we're going to give the 5th place trophy to Leah Thomas. She can hold that one for the photo, and you can hold the 6th place trophy for the photo. The trophies look identical, I would like to point out.
And y'all know that you're both 5th place. Come on now.
Yeah, they didn't strip her of her 5th place rank for that race.
You know.
No, like that is not what happened.
Like, show some grace.
Just be understanding of the fact that how could they have known to have 2 5th place trophies? Also, it's not Leah Thomas's fault that y'all got the exact same time and that the officials didn't have a second 5th place trophy prepared. She did not strip Riley Gaines of anything.
And this whole argument is so nonsensical because you didn't even podium. You didn't even podium. And if your whole like spiel is like, oh, like she stripped me of my title. She did the why didn't she get first?
Yes.
Why didn't she get second? Why didn't she get third? And then lastly, why didn't she get fourth?
No, but you're so right, because it is actually so ridiculous that Riley Gaines has managed to make a career out of complaining over tying for 5th. She is a total grifter. She likes to say that she doesn't want to be painted as a bigot. Ma'am, you are a bigot.
You're a lot more than a bigot. You're a sore loser. You're a sore competitor, and get got.
Get got. Clearly you didn't have a winner's mentality if you're going to gripe over tying for 5th place.
Correct.
And
that isn't going to make you podium, ma'am.
It's not going to, and you didn't even. Beside the point. Speaking of swimming, also in general, sports rewards advantages. Like, for example, Michael Phelps has biological advantages that make him a better swimmer compared to most men.
You don't see, like, petitions across the United States to ban Michael Phelps, except you're hating on the T-girls. You're hating on less than 10 T-girls.
Like, let these women live, please.
Like, come on now.
Also, no one is transitioning to gain competitive advantages in sports.
Correct. If anything, it's a disadvantage because of the hormones that are being injected into your body. You are physiologically changing. Your muscles, you're losing muscle mass. You are like, it's a disadvantage. And I know people don't like to listen to science anymore, but but this is the cold hard truth. It is not an advantage. You are quite literally not a man.
Yeah. Yeah. No, like, especially for endurance sports, those hormones, like everything that trans women who are transitioning medically are taking literally makes their bodies less suited for endurance sports. So maybe let them breathe.
Yeah.
Just, oh my God.
Also, I would like to point out that this argument is also misogynistic and factually untrue.
Speak about it.
Someone assigned male at birth is not always going to outperform someone assigned female at birth in sports.
Facts. End of discussion. And you know that as a freaking nationally ranked softball player.
Yes, I was a pitcher. My last season that I pitched, I had 144 strikeouts in one season.
Absolutely insane.
Thank you. I was a beast.
No,
No,
what
I'm
an honor
kidding.
to be in your presence.
No, and it's really funny. This is so off topic, but I do think this is funny to add. Anna would always come to my games, and she would have a sign saying, "Number 7 on the field and number 1 in my heart."
You know it's true.
Get you a bestie like that. But anyway, I digress. I definitely, in my career, have pitched against men.
And they haven't been able to hit your pitches.
No.
I guarantee you, if you take the average man off the street and throw him into a tennis match with Serena Williams, that man is going to lose every single time.
Yeah.
You are not naturally better because you're a man. Speaking of, Donald Trump, this is just really funny to me. Donald Trump invited Riley Gaines onto the stage with him at CPAC, right? And he said to this former D1 swimmer, he said that it would be unfair for him to swim against her because he's so much bigger and stronger than her that he would beat her were they ever to race each other. And he was saying this like to further the argument that trans women shouldn't be allowed to compete in women's sports. But like, sir, you're almost 80 and you have numerous known health problems. There's no way you are beating a former D1 athlete.
Let me paint the scene for you. Imagine Riley Gaines' final lap. She looks back. She sees a cloud of spray tan. That is how I picture it going.
I think you're very correct. It would all come off in the chlorine.
Chemicals, baby. Also, I would like to point out, can non-athletes stop having opinions on sports?
Broad claim. Sorry to all sports fans in general.
I'm very sorry, but I'm so tired. I'm really tired. I hate it. I hate all these men with podcasts who like want to talk about sports but never like played a sport in their life. Like, I can't stand it. And I absolutely respect the athletes that are commentators now and go into sports analysis. Yes, because they have the record to back it up. But please, as a culture, can we shame them?
No, I think we should, because it's like, sure, you can be a fan of your team, you can have like all of that stuff, but you are not an expert. You're not a pro. So when it comes to rules and regulations for how like leagues should operate, maybe pipe down.
Just a thought.
Also, just like to wrap this section up, we just wanted to point out that there are so few trans athletes in general. This is like such an unimportant issue. The NCAA has banned trans women from competing in women's sports under the order of Donald Trump, reversing a policy that they've had for over 15 years that did allow trans women to compete under very specific hormone guidelines. According to the NCAA, out of over 500,000 student athletes, which, let's be clear, that is over 500,000 people, there are fewer than 10 trans athletes.
This is what our country is focusing on?
No, and like, let me put that into perspective because I crunched the numbers.
Yeah.
That is fewer than 0.002% of that demographic.
This is pathetic.
It is absolutely pathetic. There are so many other things that if we want to like talk about bettering college sports or we want to talk about bettering women's sports and things like that.
Like, that's a fair conversation, and let's have it. Let's push the conversation to that. Honestly, when you hear someone talking about this issue, bring up the treatment of college athletes. Bring up the absolute pay gap.
Yeah, the abuse, the exploitation, and like the devaluing of women's sports in general in comparison to men's sports. Talk about that. Don't talk about these like Under 10 people? Under 10, please.
And they have the nerve to call it a trend.
We'll get to that later, but it is some audacity. Sarah is absolutely right about that.
Another popular talking point that the right is using is bathrooms and whether or not trans people should be allowed to use bathrooms that correspond to their gender identity.
They love to present this issue as if it's, oh, cis women will be in danger if we allow trans women into female bathrooms. That is just fear-mongering about possible assault, as if cis men don't assault women all the time.
Correct. Let's break it down. What man is going to go to Party City and pick out a wig and go into a bathroom?
Sorry. No, that idea is so ridiculous. It's quite literally laughable.
And the people that are like, no, it happens. It happens. When?
When?
When? Name a time.
Name a time.
Because I promise you, they're just doing it on the street.
Yes.
They don't need to go into a bathroom. And there's also no data to back up the claims that men will pretend to be trans to attack women. Men have never needed to do that.
In fact, trans people are more likely to experience violence and assault when using a bathroom that corresponds with their gender identity than any cis person.
Yeah. A study by the Williams Institute at UCLA Law School found that there is no link between trans-inclusive bathroom policies and the decline in bathroom safety for cis people.
So why should we just not let trans people use the bathroom that corresponds with their gender identity? It is truly such a non-issue.
Wholeheartedly agree.
Now, moving on to discuss states' laws, there are laws in multiple states that restrict or prohibit minors from transitioning. The Human Rights Campaign reports that as of December 2024, a total of 26 states, home to an estimated 40% of all trans youth aged 13 to 17, have passed a ban on accessing or utilizing gender-affirming care for youth. That's a lot of kids. 40% of all trans youth, that is a lot of kids. Now, who these laws cover and what procedures are regulated differs from state to state. 2 of these states, Arizona and New Hampshire, focus their ban only on gender-affirming surgeries. The remaining 24, the majority of those laws, ban access to all forms of transgender healthcare for youth, including puberty blockers, gender-affirming hormones, and surgery.
Horrible.
Agreed. In 2 states, Alabama and Nebraska, these laws ban access to care for those under the age of 19, past the legal age where you are an adult and allowed to vote. In the remaining states, care is banned for those under age 18. And to make things worse, in 6 of these states, Alabama, Florida, Idaho, North Dakota, Oklahoma, and South Carolina, there are laws that target physicians and healthcare providers by making it a felony to provide gender-affirming medical care to youth.
I'm laughing because I'm so frustrated. I'm laughing because my heart breaks and my heart hurts for all of those kids and all of those practicing physicians.
Yeah.
The government should not be in doctors' offices. I think that they are already in a lot of places they shouldn't be, and the doctor's office has no place for government.
Wholeheartedly agreed.
Now, here are some stats and information on how important gender-affirming care is for kids, providing that these laws are actually harmful. From the HRC, a study from the Trevor Project shows that transgender youth with access to hormone replacement therapy medications have lower rates of depression and are at a lower risk for suicide.
So important.
A study by Stanford University School of Medicine found that positive mental health outcomes were higher for transgender people who accessed hormone replacement therapy medications as teenagers versus those who accessed it as adults.
That's really important to know.
Yeah. A third study published by the New England Journal of Medicine found that 2 years after initiating hormone replacement therapy medications, transgender youth reported higher levels of life satisfaction and positive affect, and lower levels of gender dysphoria, depression, and anxiety. Previous studies have also found that transgender and non-binary youth who are able to receive puberty blockers report positive psychosocial impacts, including increased well-being and decreased depression. Other recent studies have found that receipts of puberty blockers can dramatically reduce the risk of suicidality, in some cases by over 70% among transgender youth compared to those who were unable to access desired treatment.
Those stats really paint a picture of how absolutely vital gender-affirming healthcare can be for minors.
Yes, and we should take that seriously as communities and as a world.
Yeah, because lives are quite literally on the line. To make matters worse, on July 17th, the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline will end its hotline dedicated to LGBT youth as a result of orders from the Trump administration. This is especially concerning because trans people are favorite targets for hate crimes.
Absolutely evil.
According to GLAAD, between May 1st, 2024 and May 1st, 2025, the Alert Desk tracked 932 anti-LGBTQ incidents in 49 U.S. states and the District of Columbia, the equivalent of 2.5 incidents every day. 52% of all incidents were also specifically targeting transgender and gender nonconforming people. Violent attacks included in this year's count resulted in 84 injuries and 10 deaths, 8 of which involved fatal violence against people of color. Now, this is absolutely horrible, and trans people deserve to live in peace.
Yes, let trans people live. Which brings us to the moral of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Trans people deserve to be here, and trans people are not harming you by just existing. If you are that threatened by someone just existing, I highly, highly suggest that you get help.
Yeah, they are literally not infringing on your rights in any way, so it's none of your business.
And I also do want to talk about how a lot of people love to say that trans people are just confused. Trans people are just, this is just a trend. This is just, a fad, that they don't know themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I wholeheartedly disagree. Trans people have to make a life-altering decision that will impact them for the rest of their lives. I would argue that they know themselves more than the average person. They have to sit and think about who they are. What does that mean? What makes them feel okay?
Yeah.
That is more than the average person will ever do in their lifetime. We live in an avoidant state.
Yeah.
We live in an avoidant world. Trans people constantly have to think about who they are, what does that mean, and so on and so forth.
Most cis people are not thinking about themselves and their gender identity nearly half as much, and just interrogating who am I truly, as much as literally any trans person ever will. You are so correct.
Yes, and if you are going through that as we speak, we see you, we love you, and you will always have support here.
Absolutely.
I can promise you that.
Here at Himball Court Radio, we love you.
We absolutely love you. On a lighter note, we wanted to have this episode just point out the absolute silliness that these arguments are, how they're constructed,
Yeah.
how they are formulated. There is no evidence of these matters.
Yeah.
So we actually wanted to list out what are trends.
Not being trans, but we've got some examples. Just as a baseline for information here, according to the Williams Institute, among U.S. adults, 0.5% identifies as transgender, which is about 1.3 million adults. Again, 0.5% of U.S. adults. And among the youth, ages 13 through 17 here in the U.S., only 1.4% of them identify as transgender, which equates to about 300,000 youth.
So keep that number in mind as we list out these actual trends. Anna, take it away.
To kick us off, let's start with reading romantasy. Very, very popular genre on Book Talk. I would argue that most popular Book Talk books are romantasy. And romantasy is a specific kind of romance novel that is fantasy. You know, like A Crown of Thorns and Roses is romantasy. And it is such a popular genre that sales of the books by only two authors in the genre for a single year are in the tens of millions of copies. More romantasy books by only two people, not every single person writing in the genre, have been sold than trans people exist, both adults and youth combined in the United States.
Crazy.
People really are that horny.
You can't.
It's the truth.
Also, I would like to point out another trend that is actually a trend.
Tell me about it.
Stanley Cups.
Real.
10 million sold as of 2023, which is the equivalent of 3% of the population of the US. Just think about it. Stanley Cups will always be, more prevalent in American culture than trans people.
And that stat is only up to 2023. It doesn't even go up to 2025. You know more Stanley Cups have been sold since then. That is double. There are more Stanley Cups sold than double the amount of trans people currently in the United States.
Yes, and trans people are a mighty, mighty community, but it is small.
Yeah.
It is small.
Yeah.
And we want to point that out. And bringing it home to our last final trend, more people watch Love Island USA than are trans.
Correct.
The first episode of season 7 had 355 million viewers. Just sit with that. So next time you want to be a keyboard warrior and you want to just attack someone, just the T-girls and the T-boys just living their life, you're the odd one out.
Yeah.
You're the odd one out, I promise you.
Oh my gosh. No, I'm so glad that we did this because I think that these 3 examples really highlight how much nonsense this whole culture war is. It's so unnecessary. Just let trans people live.
It's really not that hard.
Yeah, go drink from your Stanley Cup instead.
Go watch Love Island.
Exactly. Stress about that. Stress about Ace running the villa, Stress about... Stress about, Nicolandria if you're a shipper. Just let trans people exist.
Let trans people exist. We love you. We see you. We have wanted to do this episode for a very, very long time, and we will continue to speak out about the trans community, but we wanted to approach this episode in a way that is easy to digest, especially with really horrible stats that we listed out. But trans people, we love you. We see you. And we want you to be okay, and we will continue to fight for you every day.
Absolutely. You are in our hearts always.
Before we end this episode, we wanted to share some resources for trans people and some places for people to donate to support trans people. For trans people in crisis, here are some resources.
The Trevor Project's 24/7 365 lifeline is at 866-4U-TREVOR, which in numbers is 866-488-7386.
And the Trevor Chat is their online instant messaging option.
And Trevor Text is a text-based support option.
And if you're looking for peer support, you can visit Trevor Space from anywhere in the world.
The National Suicide Prevention Lifelines number is 800-273-TALK, which is 800-273-8255.
And the Trans Lifelines number is 877-565-8860.
And some helpful organizations are the National Center for Transgender Equality, NCTE, which is an organization for advocacy,
and Transgender Legal Defense and Education Fund, TLDEF, for legal services.
There is also the Transgender Law Center, TLC, for legal services and advocacy.
And here are some places you can donate to. The Trevor Project. They provide support for the LGBTQ+ community.
There's also Trans Defense Fund LA, and they provide self-defense tools and self-defense classes for Black and brown trans people in Los Angeles.
I love them. They're fabulous. And last, but certainly not least, Global Action for Trans Equity, or GATE, is a trans advocacy organization that fights for trans rights on a global scale and offers resources like events, job listings, and grants for trans advocacy. Again, we will be listing all of this on our website, so do not worry if you could not write it down. We will have it down for you.
Absolutely. That's about it for this episode. We hope it cleared up some of the misinformation and lies about the trans community and made it clear that trans people deserve all of our support.
As always, the resources we discussed will be linked on our website, hamblecourtradio.com. Do not hesitate to visit it. You can also follow us on Blue Sky at Hamblecourt Court Radio, and you can also follow me there at Sarah Livings-Walsh.
I'm there as Not Like Mona Lisa. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, and share so you don't miss our content. And don't forget to rate, review, and follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
And with that, I'm Sarah Livings-Walsh.
I'm Analisa Venolia.
And this has been Revolution Report.